Okay, let's go. So, in this usual setup, we've got a fat stack of labels to do today. Got about 50 orders, which is sort of usual for Monday. And at the moment, we've got, I think we're close to 200 pre-orders for Inferno X, which is crazy. I've got about 45 cases of Inferno X that I've ordered. But when they all come in, I don't know, I think I'm going to be able to do about 20 cases in the first week. That's what I'm aiming for. And that's what I'll probably limit pre-orders to, 600, because I want to get everything out before Christmas. Will I get everything out before Christmas? I don't know. And I don't really want to risk it because, you know, if it weren't Christmas, I might be a bit more lenient with it. But because it's coming up to that, and I know that a lot of people want it for Christmas, I just want to get everything out and be done with it. So I'm going to restrict sales a little bit. Unfortunate, but I think it's better than having a load of disappointed customers. So that is what I've gone for here. I'm also going to plug this in. Well, I'm a bit worried about the settings it's showing. There's that. There we go. That makes me feel better. All the things on display. Okay, so we've got a fat stack of labels here that we need to go through. Got about 50 orders to do. And at the moment, we're sitting about 200 pre-orders for Inferno X. I'm not sure how many boxes that is. I think it's just coming up to 500 boxes. I've ordered 25, 35, 45 cases, 30 boxes in a case from distributors, but I don't know how many are going to arrive in that first week. I think I'll probably be able to get out 20 cases in that first week based on what arrives, although possibly for the first 2 weeks. We will see. And so I'm going to limit sales to 600 boxes up for pre-order. So as I said, probably going to be another 100, and then that is it. Because if it weren't Christmas, I wouldn't mind. But I want to get everything out before Christmas, and so that is the way that I'm going to do it. I'm hoping that everything will ship before Christmas, although there's no guarantee of that. So again, not 100% sure, and just a matter of we're just going to have to wait and see. With it, obviously, it's a very popular set. Gen 1 is always popular in Korea. And yeah, I mean, we knew coming into this, it was going to be a hot set. It was going to be very in demand. And hopefully, Korea can keep up with the supply. Although, based on the last few sets, it has been a bit more difficult for them than normal. So, there we go. That is going in there. Put in a free pack. Let me just check what the current free pack is. Black Flame, no Raging Surf. Goes back to Black Flame. So I'll put free pack in for 5th order. And that's first order of the day, 5739. That was 2 Heatwave Arena. Tracked 48 in the tracked 48 bag. Okay, so we'll put that in there. And then let's see what the next order is, and then we'll get on to some comments. So it's going to be 2 Glory of Team Rocket. And yeah, so about Friday. Unfortunately, there was nothing there because I came in planning it, but then I don't know, this sort of mini PC that I bought, it was just not showing up any any option for Wi-Fi anymore. I think it was a hardware issue, which is pretty bad. And so I just had to run back home, get my laptop, come back and rush to get all of the orders out. And unfortunately, there was just no time for anything or to do anything else. So yeah, crazy end to the week. Well, a bit of a hectic end to the week, but everything got out on time, which is all that really matters. And so that was no problem. So first comment is a reply by Kane Riley 4129, and I asked him if his order arrived safely, and he said it did, and got some great pulls. I opened some with my daughter and some with a friend. Thanks again. And well, yeah, one just sort of Korean great pulls. Surprised a lot of people, to be honest, when they first open it. But it is really fun to rip, not just because of the price and the sort of the packs that you can go through, but also just because of the pull rates. And also kind of come back to the thing about that children are getting to enjoy the hobby. I think when people say that, nostalgia for Pokemon is going to die out because kids aren't getting packs, and I do have a video recorded for that, and I wanted to upload it, but I just didn't like one, I need to do a thumbnail for it, which I should do today, but two, I don't know, I just prefer these sort of just chatting kind of videos, kind of things, and that one was a bit too focused. I was like, I've got these 3 points I'm going to make, bang, 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 went through them, and it was a bit too structured, but also maybe structured a good thing, and not something to sort of complain about. So also it's good to see variety. I'll try and upload it this week. Also, I'm going to plan to do a live stream on Wednesday. I think Wednesday, 6 p.m, like 7:30, something like that. We'll do a live stream. In general, it will just be, I know a lot of people have business questions, so it will be mainly focused on that, but then also just general Pokemon. Obviously there's loads of things happening with Pokemon at the moment. Big Dream coming out in Japanese, Inferno X, Phantasmal Flames, released on Friday. I actually got an invite for that from Amazon. I've never done them before, but I just thought, why not? I was on there and I was looking at other people selling Korean and some crazy prices for Korean on Amazon. And I was thinking, maybe I should sell on Amazon. But I was just like, nah, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I've thought about sort of TikTok and whatnot. I thought about doing this, so doing what we're doing, but just putting up a phone somewhere and just streaming to Whatnot, and then people can buy. But the problem with that is that Whatnot take a bigger commission than Shopify do. And so if I'm doing that, I just have to up the prices by quite a lot. I think I'd have to up them about 30% from what I've got on my website to maintain margin and sell on Whatnot. Similar for TikTok. Although I think TikTok do a lower commission, like 5%, if you sell while live. So any sales during a live stream, it's better basically for you as a creator. That's full Raging Surf and then full Ruler of the Black Flame. Quite a few packs for this order, 4 Raging and 4 Ruler. I think if you are buying single packs, it's worth it to sort of buy a decent chunk if you just want to buy loose packs and test out different sets, because I think if you're just buying a couple, then you don't really get a good feel for Korean, because the pull rates just aren't that. It's the same for anything. There's no guaranteed holo. If even getting that in English means anything to people anymore. I think even the EX pull, no one really cares that much, do they? When they get an EX, they're not, people aren't going crazy for it. And it's a shame kind of how it's changed so much in Pokemon. Because I remember that holos used to be crazy. That would be sort of the big pull. But now, I guess it's like, is it power creep? But with Pokemon cards? No, but in terms of what you can pull, is that what used to be considered a big hit, it just isn't anymore. And it is what it is, Obviously, Pokemon have to innovate. they can't just rely on the same thing that they've always been doing. And you see that in terms of the 7-card pack that came out in Japanese and then Korean. So this is sort of it's not really an innovation we've seen within English. But with Japanese, so you've got the special set with 10 cards, 10 packs. 10 cards, 10 packs in a box. And then you just got the standard with the 5 cards. Although that wasn't, it wasn't always the case, but sort of in recent memory, that's the way it's been. And then with 151, they decided, actually, now we're going to do a middle ground. And we'll do 7 cards, 20 packs. And was that just a thing with 151? No, because then they came back and they did it again with Black Bolt and White Flare. And then sort of who knows then where they're going to take this next. It seems to be that they're reserving this special set tier, the 20 pack 7 cards, just for generation specific sets. Although we're only going off 2 pieces of data, so what can you really say about that? But that is, what it has been. So this rumored Gen 3 set, which obviously would be crazy. It's, for me personally, it's sort of the generation that I grew up on. There's obviously that nostalgia factor. I think, just lots of love for Hoenn and those games. I am working on a general Pokedex, sort of in terms of card collecting. I prefer doing that to just master setting. I think it's more interesting, sort of putting cards together that way, in my opinion. And so I'm working on that. But sort of most importantly within that for me is the Hoenn decks. And I don't really care about, getting full arts for everything, or getting sort of the best artwork for every generation. But for Hoenn, certainly I would want sort of, my Grail artworks, whatever those are, to, needing to look for it, explore different cards. Recently having a bit more appreciation for the different holo patterns. I think the Scarlet and Violet holo patterns are a bit flat. And you see they don't really add too much to the card. Some people like that clean look, but it doesn't really interfere, and it just sort of elevates the art rather than adds to it, but adds to it in potentially a way that is distracting. 2 Mega Brave, 2 Glory of Team Rocket, which is fair enough. I can kind of appreciate that perspective as well. But for me, I think the early holo patterns are really, really cool. They make a difference. I think sort of looking at like the EX Legend Maker, which is what I spend a lot of time sort of looking at. It's really nice. The Cosmo Hoyle pattern, they still do it, but only for like promos, like list pack promos. They don't really do it in sets anymore. Although we do have these interesting reverse holos, so obviously everyone's aware of the like Pokeball, the Master Ball. Then we've got this new Team Rocket one that's being announced for Mega Dream. So it's interesting kind of with Mega Dream because it's supposed to be a new era, but it's in kind of carrying over all of these things from Scarlet and Violet. These sort of, we've got Rocket Pokemon still. There's a lot of continuity. And I think probably that's why that it hasn't really felt like a new era, although technically it is. It's just been more continuity as opposed to change. It's just felt like more of the same. We've got these new artworks, but they're just gold artworks. There's nothing sort of, it's not like we went to having more of these full arts, and full arts becoming a very regular, consistent staple as it did to the end of Sword and Shield, and then obviously throughout Scarlet and Violet. But yeah, and then these sort of Mega Attack rares, they're nothing new. We've had it before, but also it doesn't seem like that. They're not becoming this new chase. They're not eclipsing what we've had before. Whereas Scarlet and Violet really felt like a new direction in terms of collectability. And the tail end of Sword and Shield as well. Not forgetting about that. But Scarlet and Violet really cemented it as this is the new way of Pokemon cards, the new way of Pokemon card collecting. And they hit the jackpot, didn't they, Pokemon? They really nailed it. In terms of the artwork they were doing, understanding the collectability and the desirability of cards. Good job, Pokemon. In fairness. So yeah, seeing that. But anyway, so that's doing the live stream. Talking Pokemon stuff in general, mainly Pokemon business. but also, things like Pokopia. I think Pokopia, and okay, I have a bit of a bias, as in I've never played Animal Crossing. I'm not really too interested in it. Same with Minecraft, I played a bit, but not a game that I sank loads of hours into, as I know lots of people do. But Stardew Valley, what a game. What the game Stardew Valley is. That kind of just, I don't know, life sim thing, living in a world, building up the world, although you don't do it too much in Stardew Valley, is very enjoyable. Dragon Quest Builders, I only played the demo of it because, I don't know, I'm not so sure about, new games. You always look at them and you go, I don't know, I could just play the old games. I could just play Red Rescue Team on Nintendo Switch Online and it would be great. I know I'd have a good time. Or I could take a risk on a new game. I think that was Battle Partners. Yes, it is. They've got loads of cases down here. I think we've got some Mega Symphonia, White Flare, Team Rocket's in there. Don't really know what the rest of it is. And some more stuff that arrived today, but it's being delivered, but I haven't brought up yet. So this is Box Battle Partners going in with a pack of Raging Surf and a pack of 151. So we'll get this there. But anyway, to wrap it all back to the comment, thinking that, children, they are getting and enjoying Pokemon cards. I see it all the time with Korean. And it's just, there's so many ways to enjoy the TCG. You can just go out and buy a couple of decks and play with them. You don't have to focus on the collecting aspect of it. And I know I sell Korean, what am I doing talking about playing the game? But I respect TCGs that have a player base. And I think that it's healthy when there is a balance of collecting and playing. And also that it's a good thing when playable cards are cheap. I think that's obviously a really good thing as well. I forgot to put this in the last one. What was that? Was it 24 one? That was 48. Always irritating. I mean, put this on your bingo card for one of these packing sessions every time this is going to happen. So let's just open it up. I don't think I put a card in at all. And chat is not here to remind me. But it's fine. It's because we had all of these packs that had to go in. So let me... I don't know the easiest way to do this. I will take out the box. There are some packs there. Okay. So we're going to get card, getting sleeve. There's lots of orders to get through today. It's 1 and we barely made a dent. But what can you do? My Royal Mail pickup isn't until 3. Website cutoff is 2. Just to leave myself a bit of a buffer for any orders that come in between when I start and 2. So then, if there were a situation where loads of orders come in, I'm not completely out of it. So it's more just a buffer for myself to do that. Okay, so that is her. Then this is 5749. So we'll do the card in the sleeve now. Put that in there. And then we'll look at the next comment. And the next comment is a repeat one. So it is, well, it's not a repeat, but it's just another same sentiment, and it is about Chinese cards. And it gets to the point where if you've been asked too many times, still got to do it, don't you? So Anthony.Hemsworth 94 says, do you think you'll ever dabble in Chinese sets or too expensive? I love the simplified gem sets, and a lot of people do. A lot of people are really into those, as well as the Collect 151. And to be honest, also just some of the Scarlet and Violet sets. So it's not that they're too expensive. Because compared to Japanese, they're a good price. Compared to English, they're a good price. So, yeah, as I said previously, pricing is not a factor in this. And I would stock them, but there are just so many things to focus on at the moment that it's almost impossible. You just can't cover everything. There are other TCGs that I'd like to do outside of Pokemon as well. But it's just not possible. obviously Pokemon is a focus. So, I would go to, ideally, what I would do is I would be able to stock Korean, Japanese, and Chinese to a good level, have those. And this is purely talking about things I can control. So obviously distribution, that's outside my control, so I'm not going to talk about anything to do with English. But I get that, and then the next thing I would look to do would be to stock Japanese One Piece. And that'd be it really. That's the extent that I think that you can do without having distribution access. And that's a lot. You can make a very healthy business with only Korean and Japanese and Chinese Pokemon, as well as Japanese One Piece. So put it in a bit of perspective, and this is me only doing Korean. And I've done about 350 this year, and possibly going to get close to 500k revenue, so turnover, by the end of the year. So just to put that in perspective. And I think that anything around like 10% is a decent margin in Pokemon. Obviously, there are people with higher prices and more bulk deals, so they're getting it for better. But in terms of a goal percentage, I think 10% is a decent goal. And in some cases, for some sets, it might be higher. In some cases, for some sets, it might be lower. You might have stock that you're sitting on, and so you've got to sell that off for a loss. Or not for a loss, but just for less than you were hoping for. Well, potentially for a loss. If you buy something the wrong side of a reprint, then it might be a loss. And I think it is always better to do that rather than hold. Because you'd think, that, okay, so you bought something, and let's say I bought Mega Dream, and the price that I pre-ordered it for was just way too high. I got in too late, the price was too high. They're up, by the way, Mega Dream pre-orders, just now that I mention it. But let's say you go into that, you do your Mega Dream pre-orders, and you got in too late, it was too high. And then the price falls, as it typically does after release. And no one pre-orders it because they can get it cheap elsewhere. Ruler Raging Knight Stellar. Ruler Raging. So I'm just going to do, they just ordered loads of individual packs. I'm just going to do these, and then I'll get back to that. Skip forward maybe a minute. Crimson Paradise. Great. It's all going wrong. Too many orders. Crimson Paradise Super Electric Battle Partners. Crimson Paradise Battle Partners. Super Electric. Heatwave. Both Megas and Glory. Heatwave. Mega. Lord Team Rocket. And that should be, how many packs should that be? 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, okay, 13, there we go. Sorry. Let's say you get in and you got in late, pre-order price is too high, you can't sell your pre-orders, and you need to sell your pre-orders. If you're doing Japanese, you need to sell the majority of your pre-orders because the price is going to go down, and you don't want to be left there holding the bag. But you might think, that's fine. It doesn't matter that I'm holding it because Pokemon sets go up in price. And it's true. Eventually, that set will be in high demand in Japanese, probably, considering the current market conditions, and it will most likely go up. However, that's not always the case. And you could sit on it, hope that it goes up again, remembering that you bought in at the peak, so you need to go quite high. Or you could liquidate some of that capital, put it back in something that is selling well, that you do know that you've got a good margin on, and you've got a competitive price for, and you could sell that. And obviously, that is the better option. Because something to keep in mind is that if you make 10% on your stock but you can turn over your stock twice a month. You're making what, 121%? You're making 21% every month. You have to work hard. You have to turn over more stock. But it is better to have lower prices, or it's not better. This isn't just sort of, indefinite. But it is good to have lower prices and turn over your stock more compared to having higher prices and it taking longer for you to move stock. The name of the game in Pokemon is to churn and burn, to get through stock. And then there are a number of reasons for this. One is the price volatility. You don't know what the price is going to be. Yeah, the price could go up or the price could go down. Reprints are not scheduled. They're not laid out. They're not documented. There is no guarantee that there will be a reprint. There is no guarantee that there will not be a reprint. So we have no idea. And the only thing that you know is I got it for this price. I need to sell it for this price and just get it out. And so that is the aim of the game, and that is one of the reasons. The other reason is that you grow your inventory by turning over stock. And the quicker that you can turn over stock for a good margin, the better off you are, as you can grow your inventory. Another thing to do with that is if you quickly go through that, you can get a lot of capital raised from Shopify and PayPal if you are turning over stock. So the way these loan repayments work from these selling platforms is that it's a percentage of your sales. So if you're turning over, you're repaying these loans, you get more loans. And for a young business, that is how you grow aggressively. You grow aggressively by taking these loans and pushing forward. And you'll get one of these loans and you look at them and go, they want a 12% fee. They want a 12% fee on this loan. And my margin is only 10%. So if I take this 10,000 and they want a 1,200 fee, and you say, but my margins are only 1,000, so I'm going to make a 200. What's going on with this tape? I'm going to make a £200 loss on this loan. There is no point in taking it, but there is, because the way that these loan repayments are taken, they're taken as percentages of your sales. So it will slow down your growth for a bit, but with the cash injection, you'll grow much more quickly. And so let's say it takes you 4 months to pay off your sale, to pay off your loan, because of the rate which you're doing, and it's variable in terms of the percentage that they're going to take. But let's just say it was 4 months. We took a £10,000 loan, they want a 12% fee, so 1,200. Your margins are 1,000, so if you turn over your stock once, and let's say you had to repay the loan in 30 days, then that is a genuine possibility, but not the way that they structure it. Turn over it once, you're going to make a £200 loss. However, if you can turn over your stock twice a month, and it's 4 months to repay, then that is eight turnovers, so 8 10%. And so it's 1.1 to the power of 8, whatever that is. But let's say it's at least 80%, and it's significantly more than 80%. So it is always worth it, if you're in those positions, take capital in that way. There are other loans and other options, and that's a completely different story in terms of whether you should take them or not. Taking actual business loans, that's something which is totally dependent on where you're going to get the loan and the terms that you're being offered, the credit history that you can show them, the sales data that you can show them, if you'll be even accepted in the first place. Those are completely variable things. But in terms of what I've experienced and what I know is always a good deal, provided you're smart with your pricing, is to take these Shopify Capital and PayPal working capital loans. In my experience, and sort of looking at the numbers, I can't see why they're not a good thing. It's a risk, obviously. To take any loan, to take any capital is a risk. Starting a business is a risk. To take on stock is a risk. So, that's just part and parcel of the game. And unfortunately, just something that we have to accept if we want to go into a business. But I would strongly suggest taking those things. I would also strongly suggest holding money back and timing things carefully. If I know that Inferno X has come out in Japanese and it's hot, and Phantasmal Flames is coming out in English and it's hot. And so I know it's coming out in Korean. And based on the way that they're releasing sets at the moment, and that we get Japanese release dates quite early, I know that it's coming out on November 28th. I am saving money so that I can go heavy bags into Inferno X in Korean, based on my situation, my customer base, and knowing what I'm selling, and knowing who I'm selling to. That is the way to go about it. You have to stay really aware of what is coming up. It's always good to look at your stock, to look at what you need to be restocking, you know, what's selling well in your store. So for example, what I do is I like to have 3 weeks worth of stock, if not a month's worth of stock, ready and waiting. And so that's including ordered from Korea as well as stock that is on hand. So the way you do it is just look at your analytics. So Shopify have it quite nicely. You can filter by Korea booster boxes, net items sold in the last 7 days. You have a look at it, you go, okay, so these are my hot sellers from the last 7 days. I also like to look at 30 days as it gives a bit of a better perspective. Because let's say, for example, that I just haven't had Glory of Team Rocket in for a while. So I didn't have it in for a month because it was really hard to get. And so from Shopify's mind, looking at that data, it thinks, don't need any of this. No one wants to buy it. But obviously you know the full picture, so you can have some adjustment in terms of that. You know that whether things are hot set or not, but it's always good to combine that with data so you can be doubly sure, and knowing how many cases short you are. So then when you go to make an order, you know exactly what it is that you need. And I would, because I like to make orders in terms of 10 cases at a time, because then you at least start to get good discounts. Then I can sort of save up, okay, now I need 10 cases. And so now I'm going to place an order. Or if you didn't, then I would just recommend that you go and you look at some of the cheaper sets, the ones you can get for about $700 a case, and you're throwing them in there. So that's where you can get the higher sets discounted, because you're buying the cheaper sets to get up to that 10 case benchmark, or in some cases it is monetary. So it might be that you need to spend 10K before they give you a discount. And the discounts aren't huge. You know, some of them are just variable, some of them are like 5%, particularly from Japanese sellers, they give you like 5%. And it's sort of, you know, fine, cool. But yeah, don't expect there to be huge discounts when you're going to resellers. Okay, so next comment is from Michael Capurso 1099. And this is on the one on the 13th, so I think that was the last one from last week. And he said, I like the idea of buying all languages to avoid scalpers. What do you think of Indonesian? I might start collecting them as they have Pokemon names in English and use the Japanese printer. And so obviously that is a lot of things that are going for Indonesian. They do use the English names, unlike Thai. So I think Thai would be, if I'm ranking sort of the Asian ones. So thinking about Thai, Indonesian, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. So at a personal preference, I think it's more than just personal preference, but it's also thinking about how much the different types of scripts. So a character-based script like Chinese, Japanese, and Korean takes up less space on the card. And I think two really good examples of this are, go and look at the Bubble Mew in English compared to in Japanese, Korean, or Chinese, and go and look at the new Charizard, specifically at Charmander's face in English, and then same again in Japanese, as that's the only one that is available at the moment. And I think it is clearly noticeable that there is an advantage to the character scripts if you're collecting for the artwork. Obviously, it always come back, people are saying, oh, but I play the game. Obviously, if you're playing the game, don't buy a language which is not tournament legal and which you can't read. So I think that is clearly, doesn't really need to be said, but a lot of people still make that point. So just throwing that in there. I think Thai, the script it's not character based. I think it's presumably Sanskrit. I don't know. I can't speak exactly. I'm not 100% sure. Someone will correct me at some point potentially, or I'll just look it up. So yeah, it just takes up more space. Indonesian, it's the same. The headers, the Pokemon names are in English. And to be honest, if you really want that, then yeah, sure, Indonesian. Personally, I don't need my Pokemon cards to say the Pokemon name. And I'm not saying sort of, just get good at Pokemon. In terms of, learn the different Pokemon. But sort of, I don't mind. I know the Pokemon. I fill a binder, not that I can just sort of go through and sort of read the names and go, look, this is Chex Notes Sneasel. I buy it for the artwork. And so personally, not so much of a factor for me. If it is a factor that you really want them to have the English text, then yes, Indonesian is the only really available budget option for you, as the only language which is going to give that. The Japanese printers is obviously a bonus, as we all know that Japanese QC, so their quality control and their production, is the best. And as you would expect, just sort of from, I suppose, a cultural thing, but also because Pokemon is a Japanese IP, they've been doing this the longest, and they have a refined production technique, and probably, well, I don't know, higher standards potentially among the buyers. Not really sure. Bit of a speculative point just there. And so we have a number of other countries who are also using those production facilities. I'm not sure exactly all the countries. I don't know if it's traditional or simplified Chinese who use those facilities, and then obviously, apparently Indonesian do as well. Korean obviously do not, and that's why Korean gets a lot of stick. In a way, it's good that Korean do not. So it's nice to have sort of independent printing. And I don't think that's such a negative thing. I know people get a lot of quite angry about it, angry about Korean quality and not liking it, saying that it is rubbish and it's not worth it. I tend to disagree. I don't think that is really fair upon Korean. And I'm just wondering, why did I put this back over here? Because I'm not really seeing any damage to it. But I do need oh no, there's one down there. There's a damaged one down there. So we'll take that one and sell it as packs. And that is, just as an aside, if you get damaged stock, you are going to get damaged stock. It's an inevitability with international shipping. If it's really damaged, then you go to your supplier. But if it's just a bit, I don't really mind, because if it's just cosmetic damage to the outside of the pack, the outside of the box, then, and the packs inside are still good, then obviously you can just sell it as packs, or as I do, 3 packs. So I think that's just something to keep in mind when you get damaged stock. But yeah, so Indonesian, it gives you that. It's printed in English. It's printed in Japanese facilities. So that's a benefit. It's why Korean gets a lot of stick, because it's their own printed productions and they have their own methods of productions as well. Although obviously the Indonesian ones are still going to be printed with the international back. I prefer the aesthetic of the character-based scripts personally. Although I don't really mind, I've got a lot of German cards when I was younger. I've got some French cards when I was younger. And to be honest, it's kind of interesting to see the other names. It's a bit of a novelty. So yeah, I personally don't plan to stock Indonesian or Thai or other European languages, or Latin American Spanish. I'm not sort of not so interested in doing that. I think that the only sets that I mentioned already that I would consider stocking are English, because I'm selling to an English speaking audience and there's a big market for that. Japanese, as I think there is genuine reason to buy Japanese product, and I think it's fun to rip. They got the guaranteed SR or better, and it's nice to, I understand the appeal of collecting things in the original language and also getting the sets the earliest. I think that Korean then offers the sort of budget price point that it follows closely to the English and the Japanese system with the same packs, etc. So I think that is a reason to stick with that. And that is another missed note. Just going to put that over there. So that is a reason to stick with that. And as the other thing, I'm not entirely sure whether Thai and Indonesian actually do follow the same order. I know that they've got different ways of combining sets, and so I'm not 100% sure. I just don't know enough, but I have a slight suspicion that they do not follow the same sets as Korean, Japanese do, and the English does. I think they do their own thing. Although, yeah, as I said, not 100% on that. I would need to check and verify that. That's going there. I'll just do that. I'll do that off camera. So that is another consideration to keep in mind, is that what sets and how are the sets actually released. As you know, Simplified Chinese takes their own complete sort of curveball from that, but that is why they are the fourth language that I would consider selling in, well, Pokemon language that I would consider selling, as they have this, you know, they're different enough to make them interesting. So the appeal of Japanese is it's the original, the best card quality. So if you are interested in grading, if you want to rip to grade, then Japanese is the best way to go about it, as they have the best quality control. The English, for obvious reasons, and then Korean, as it is the budget option that people are familiar with the cards that they're going to get in there. But then Chinese is just, Simplified Chinese is just very different, and it has collectability then in its own right, because of that, because of how different it is, how unique it is, and the exclusives that it has, which you don't really get in any of the other languages. You do get them in terms of the Pikachu promos and other promotional material items that you can get in Japanese. And obviously very recently we had that Ditto promo that came from Korean. But other than that, we don't really get anything too novel from there. And which is a shame, because it would certainly help Korean. If Korean had more of these exclusive promos, it would certainly help them. The only Korean card, or the only really Korean thing that is spoken about, is that Metamon promo, which I've got a copy of somewhere, just for reference. Do I have it here? Not in this one. I wonder where it is. I thought it was here. I think it's somewhere. It's definitely somewhere in this room. Oh, it's over here. I'm just not 100% sure where it is. Yeah, there it is. So that is the Ditto promo. That was released for a promotional event in Korea. They're a bit more expensive now, since that event ended and the distribution of those ended. But it drew a lot of attention to Korean, and it's not the most expensive card in Korean, as obviously those are your main chasers. They'll always be the most expensive regardless, even if, you know, the Umbreon or the Moonbreon is in Korean. it will still be expensive because it's still the Moonbjorn. So that doesn't really make too much of a difference. You know, someone on Instagram commented and they said the English will always have more value. I don't know, it was one video about sort of ripping Korean is a smarter financial decision to make at the moment compared to just spending loads of money on English. Because the way that people talk is just a gambling angle. It's like English holds more value. Like, yeah, but you have to pay more to rip it. You know, the sort of tested pull rates are 1 in 400 to get the Charizard. So if you were able to get MSRP for that, you'd be spending over £1,700 if you get all those packs, 400 packs, at MSRP of Phantasmal Flames. Not likely. So let's say that you are, well, what was it? I think it was £200 for 36 packs. I'm not going to do the maths. But okay, let's just take it at MSRP. You're paying over £1,700. And you're not selling that for £1,700. And that's just to get a copy. I don't know what the gem rate is currently for it, and we won't know until that gets revealed. But it's not going to be. The gem rate would need to be, I don't know, because what is it going for? The PSA 10 probably, no, I've got no idea. Whatever. So effectively, you can get these big hitter cards. And if you're buying singles and you're investing in singles, then that's completely fine. I completely understand that. Just going to put the camera on charge, but that is not what people are doing. What people are doing is they are saying that they're ripping and they're effectively gambling. They're saying that I'm going to rip and I'm going to get these cards. And if I get these cards, then I can, and now once it overheats, let's open the window, give it a bit of help. If it cuts off, it cuts off. Regardless. People are just gambling. When I see someone in the comments, they just go, but English has more value. Yeah, if you hit the card. But if you don't, you've just spent £200 to get nothing. Whereas Korean, you spend £30, £25, and you get nothing. And it's like, so what? All you spent were £25, £30. It's not really that much when you're comparing it to English. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that when you cross into that value idea and that you're ripping packs and you're ripping English and you convince yourself, I'm only ripping English because there's value here, it's the wrong way of going about it. You're just sort of, especially with Pokemon, you're entering into just gambling territory, because that's not the way that Pokemon is designed. There are no sets where you are going to make your money back statistically from ripping Pokemon. Are there cases where someone opens one pack and then suddenly they made their money back? They hit the chase, they spent £5, it was one pack, and they got a Charizard worth £500. Sure. Does that happen? Yes. Is it statistically likely? No. Because the house always wins. I believe in Magic, but I'm not 100% sure that it is sort of set up that you can make your money back. I believe. Ripping collector's booster boxes. But I'm not 100% sure on that, and it's certainly not the case with Pokemon. And whenever I see that value card, I'm just like, this isn't the point. It's meant to be just ripping for fun to collect. You know, maybe you want to go and try and master set, and so you do it that way. But the point that, just let those sirens pass. Although this mic is supposed to be noise cancellation, so I don't actually know if you hear anything. But the point sort of that's being made is, but Korean cards are worth less. Yeah, but they cost less. The packs cost less, and that's kind of the point. You're not going to have, it's not going to be that Korean packs are this cheap, and then suddenly they sell for the same price as English. This isn't really how things work. If they did sell for that much, then everybody would be buying Korean booster boxes because there's an arbitrage opportunity there. There's clearly a difference in the prices. So I think that's just something that, I don't know. I don't respond to all of these value comments, but sometimes when they just they were just too much. It was too much belief in it. I just thought, please. It's just not. It's a state of the hobby at the moment, and you understand that there's a lot of prospective money to be made, but it's just not a good attitude. It's not a good way of thinking about things, and I would urge people not to get caught up in this kind of sentiment where it's like, oh, I ripped this and I've already made my money back. Like, just, I don't know. That's not kind of the point of Pokemon. And this is a separate conversation from people who want to talk about investing. If you want to talk about investing, and when you're investing, the idea is that you are trying to minimize risk. So you buy a sealed booster box, and there are two things you could do with it. You could open it, or you could keep it closed. If you are keeping it closed, you are engaging in the risk, which you don't know is whether the price of this will go up or go down. If you open it, you're adding another layer of risk into it. Because you're adding the layer of risk, will I get a card that is worth the value? And if you have anything on a long-term position, will that go up in time? There is no need to introduce additional risk into something. When you buy the booster box, the upside could be great. And if you pick any booster box, you could double your money in time. Certainly looking at historical data. However, the downside is, depending on where you bought in, quite low. You could, I don't know, let's say you bought a booster box of Journey Together. What do you think? Journey Together could drop to 100. You could start selling for that. If you buy in at 170, your downside is to go to 100. Your upside, you could see it 400, 500 in the future, in 5 years. So those are your upper limits and your lower limits. If you rip Journey Together, your lower limit becomes 0 because it's no longer a sealed product, and you could get absolutely nothing, or you could get maybe something that's worth £5, let's say. There's no sense in introducing that level of risk into your life if you're trying to do it as a financial decision. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you have any idea that you're approaching Pokemon with a financial idea, please do not rip product. It's not a money-making scheme. And I know a lot of people talk that way in terms of the value, and maybe they don't really mean it. I don't know, it's hard to sort of really tell. But the way it comes across is that is how they view Pokemon. The English holds value. There's some kind of value when you rip English. There's no value when you rip any Pokemon cards. Ripping is a hobby. It's something to be done for fun. And it's definitely not a way to make money. Is it impossible to make money? No. But I would, urge caution going down that route. And I think it would be better when the Pokemon hobby cools. It's interesting as someone who sells, because obviously, arguably I wouldn't have had the opportunity to sell Korean cards and have this lower competition entry compared to selling Japanese cards if the market wasn't so hot. That was how I discovered Korean cards, and that's the reason that they sell, because they are a lower price point. So it's hard for me to speak actually, because I don't know how Korean would sell in different market conditions. I don't know what the demand is like, and that's something that we are going to have to discover together. So, as I'm only a year into selling Pokemon cards. However, I would guess that demand would decrease. That some people who are priced out of English, who are priced out of Japanese, would then again be looking at those now that the market cools. But Japanese is always an option. It's always an option to go to Japanese, and I would benefit from the brand that I've now built, selling Korean and building trust, building presence, building awareness. There's stuff that I could do a lot more. You know, I should post a lot more news content, and it's not even hard. It's not even hard to post news content. I should just go on PokeBeach and I should just start. You know, when they announce, like I just said to you guys, when they announce the new reverse holo with the Rocket R, you should just make a post about that. I should just go on TikTok, do the green screen thing, put it up, and just say literally what it says in the article. Maybe give a bit of my opinion as well. And the reason why I'm suggesting that is you're trying to be a source of trust. So, well, I suppose, you know, this is getting more into, you know, hardcore business content or business core content, whatever you want to call it. But you're going to be an entertainer or you're going to be an educator on the internet. That's really what you're doing. And you can think about it in terms of television shows. For anybody who was around when we used to watch television, you're either watching something like the news, a documentary, which is education, or you're watching something which is entertainment, like reality TV, a sitcom, a film, something like that. So those are sort of two brackets you've got to fall into. And both are fine. In terms of getting views, both will get you views, probably entertainment will get you more views. What it then comes to after that is if you are making content because you run a store, because you run a business and you need to sell things, then education is the way for you to go. Because education builds trust. Entertainment, people might like you, but will they do what you say? Will they sort of listen to you? It's the difference between if a news broadcaster told you something, and this is, we're talking sort of historically, or somebody did a documentary, someone who taught you something. If they asked you to do something, or reality TV stuff, which would hold more sway over you, which would give you more reason to act in a certain way. I think for most people, it would be the person who gave them education, who taught them something, because they can trust, okay, this person seems to know things, and they're saying this, I'm kind of going to trust them again. So being an educator in the Pokemon space, trying to give people knowledge, trying to help them understand your product, so it's even more naturally for me in terms of Korean. What's wrong with me? It happened even more naturally for me in terms of Korean, as I had to do I don't even know who this belongs to. What's going on? Was this a 48? Yeah, it was. What is going on today? 3. Put that up here. Do it later. So, yeah, doing the education content and showing people why Korean was a smart buy at the moment, trying to convince people, and that's what a lot of it was. You know, in a way, Pokemon sells itself. You open a Pokemon store, people will buy from you, even if you do no marketing. It'll be slow and it'll be harder to build up trust, but people will buy from you. However, doing marketing, building up trust, if you've got a new line of product, showing people like that, or just showing people why it's worth collecting. So this would have had to happen with Chinese as well from the start. Now Chinese is a bit more mainstream. People get it if they're sort of into Pokemon. If they're sort of, you know, spending a lot of time, spending some time researching Pokemon, being around that space, then they will see overseas Chinese, they will have seen that new, that had a limited release, and they will understand why there is collectability associated with Chinese. Not so when it comes to Korean. And that's why I always get loads of pushback trying to promote it, but whatever. Don't really care, to be honest, in terms of negative comments and stuff like that. It is, if you're going to put yourself out on the internet, it is just it's gonna come. No matter what you do, no matter who you are going to get it, and you've got to be of that mindset going into it. So, next comment is going to be from Angry Pepe 69, regular viewer of the channel, and first view on the 13th video. Maybe back again today. Let's see if you made it this far into the video. Angry Pepe 69. We'll see. I don't know how far we're in, but let me know if you made it. And if you're back for this one, and thank you very much for all your support of the channel, for replying to comments as well. I really appreciate it. I think you've been a subscriber for, I think, like 3 months now. So, I don't know, what was I doing 3 months ago? Maybe it's from short form that you found me. Maybe? Or was it that like Korean, like how to sell Korean cars video? Was that 3 months ago? I don't know. I don't know what it would have been that made you subscribe. But thank you very much for doing so nevertheless, or regardless. So this is order 5790. Battle Partners in a Raging Surf. Next was a comment by James Clifton -C7B. This was again on the 13th video. It's actually got quite a few views on those videos now, which is kind of surprising. But I checked over the weekend, it was like the views had kind of gone up. Watch time not that much, because I get it, they're long videos and sort of I'm not exactly as focused as I could be. I'm kind of rambling. There's a lot of things for people to skip through if they want to, and that's fine. But yeah, thank you to people who've been doing them. I didn't really expect it. This is more just, it's kind of just nice to just talk. I would prefer to live stream, as I say, sort of again and again. And so yeah, so this week, Wednesday 5:30, be doing that, and that'd be quite a nice thing to do. So yeah, it'll be a bit more back and forth. So it'll be just sort of this. Well, I'm not going to be packing. I should be sitting down and just kind of talking, which will be nice. Having a bit back and forth, answering people's questions about business, and just talking to the Pokemon in general. So, if I can offer any help to people who are building their own business. So as James Clifton said, he's planning to build my own store. This content is very helpful. So I'm really glad to hear that. If you've got any questions, James, then drop them in the comments. Be there for the live stream if you want to. And yeah, I'll see what I can share. Or maybe there's sort of, an even older head. Well, doesn't have to be that much older compared to me. So, who can drop some knowledge and things, because a lot of information is sort of US specific. A lot of things that people share is mainly for the US, and also a lot of things that you see of people who've got distros, and it's kind of a different ballpark. If you've got distribution, although even if you do have distribution, I don't think, what does it do for you? In this market, my glasses are actually really annoying. Like stepping down all the time. But if you do have distribution, what's that doing for you? How much are you getting allocated? Not enough to make a living off. Because how much do I sell them? I don't know, I think I sell 1,000+ boxes a month. And that would be really hard to do, to get 1,000 boxes from English distribution at the moment, unless you're a big store. And so that's why you just look at it and you're like, you have to be selling something else. You have to be selling something that you can control the supply of. And to an extent, you can control the supply of Japanese and Korean, as they have low demand in those countries. Although we'll get into a comment by Splendid, who messaged me on Instagram as well, and I haven't fully read it, but I saw a little bit of it as I was checking this morning. That Korean is popping off at the moment in Korea, or that Pokemon is popping off at the moment in Korea. So we'll see what impact that has on supply. But the one that you can really control, just because it's so abundant, is Japanese. And I think that's something to keep in mind. The other thing is singles. You can easily control the supply of singles. Well, you can more easily control the supply of singles, going out and sourcing them. It's a bit of a grind, a bit of work. I don't do it too much as I'm just focused on this, but it would be a good thing for me to do as well. And then also looking at other TCGs, having all of these things in combination then allows you to do well as a business. Because if you're just relying on, I'm going to be an English Pokemon store, good luck to you. But you're not going to survive. You're not going to survive because you're not going to get enough product. In good times, sure. But when it comes to hard times, it's going to be tricky. And so either you have to price gouge, so you have to charge much higher because you've got a bottom line to meet and you need to sell X amount in revenue, not just in product. And so to meet that, you're going to have to increase the prices of your product. And that's going to be a tough thing for customers. It's going to lose you some customers. You'll make sales, of course, but it might not leave you with the best reputation. Whereas if you can spread yourself more across other languages, diversify, although still selling Pokemon, it's not really much of a diversification. But I think that it is something that it's very necessary to do. And I would urge anyone to expand their product offering, as it will safeguard them and mean that they are more likely to survive if there is an impact. If there was something catastrophic in terms of Korea, a couple of factories that shut down and there was really limited supply, I would be in trouble because I put too much in Korea. And I'd probably be able to get some supply because I'm in pretty good standing with my wholesalers. However, I would ideally have put more focus on Japanese and built up more of a Japanese backlog, as then that would be something that is able to support me. But unfortunately, I don't at the moment. And that is a risk. There are lots of risks being taken, but that's kind of what you have to do. And that seems to be just the recurring theme when we're talking about starting a business, and specifically a Pokemon business. It just is a risk in it. So then Gibberish Man 221. As you can see, we've got a load more boxes and all the orders are packed. It was about 53, 54 today. 6 bags, 2 truck 24, 2 truck 48. But I just want to get to the last questions that were there. 2 more. One was Gibberish Man 221 on YouTube on what am I collecting at the moment. Asked him to pack the packing of his brother's, or to film the packing of his brother's white flare box. As you know, all packings are now long form here. And the second one was at Splendid 10 on Korean pull rates and Chinese sets from the Thursday. So I'm living in Korea now and actively buying booster boxes. I live 5 minutes away from the official Pokemon trading card game store, buying from there all weekly. And yes, so obviously Korea now has these like Pokemon centers to do official Pokemon licensed stores. And yeah, to live that close to a physical one, it's crazy. I don't even think we have a physical one in the UK. I think we get pop-ups sometimes, like at the Excel, but mainly online. I know they're just opening one in Germany as well. But if you think the prices that we can get here cheap, plus with shipping, with import duty, compared to what you can get them in Korea, Korean prices are so cheap. I think it's like 15, 16 pounds for a booster box, which is insane. I know they raised their MSRP recently by quite a bit, but it's still so cheap compared to anywhere else. And I think Splendid 10 also messaged me on Instagram And I know that he said that it's sort of picking up in Korea at the moment, which is unsurprising. A Charizard set, Gen 1 always does well in Korea. At least, better than the other sets. So clear it's picking up. Hopefully doesn't cripple the supply that can come internationally. Although obviously understandably the domestic market takes priority, and I think that's fair enough. But still, it's always great when we can sort of share it around and get that lower price point in the UK as well. But yes, that's been it. So 53 orders on Monday, the 17th of November, and I'll see you tomorrow.